So I'm just going to announce next panelists if they are still here with us. Susan Perlman, Lisa Soren. No. No. So I assume witnesses have left, and I'm moving to a next panel, and I'm calling to testify Susan Peters, James Gurdon, Julie Marden, Arnold Gore, LaShawn Ellis, please start when you're ready. Any order is fine.
Yeah, just make sure the light is on the mic.
You can hear me? Oh, good. I'll start.
Yes.
My name is Sue Peters. I've been a resident of Manhattan for 50 years. I'm reading the testimony of George Sinopoulos. Hello, I'm George Sinopoulos. I've been in public service for at least 20 years, and I'm a police lieutenant in New York in charge of 300 people. I own a 3-story house in Astoria, which I purchased in 2013. My sister and I used to live there. As a police lieutenant, I only rely on facts, and what I'm about to tell you are the facts. In September 2020, when I returned from traveling, I discovered just several feet from my front yard a newly installed pole with a multi-directional wireless antenna on top. The pole, 35 to 40 feet tall, is closest to my 3rd floor window. Other wireless antennas are attached to overhead wires that are parallel to the 2nd and 3rd stories where my sister and I lived. For the first time in my life, I went from being perfectly healthy to suffering from heart arrhythmias, headaches, and not being able to sleep out of nowhere. As my cardiologist discovered, I had multiple heart arrhythmias. I had to undergo an invasive procedure called a cardiac ablation. But to the doctor's surprise, he was not able to replicate the arrhythmias. I didn't have them when I was away from the antennas. I experimented and stayed away from my house, and my symptoms were gone. My sister, at 31 years old, had just completed chemotherapy. She became very sick, had headaches and nausea. Her oncologist said that wireless radiation could aggravate her condition and the cancer could come back. My sister and I have since evacuated the house. I have to return occasionally but try to stay away as much as I can. This has been a financial drain, shouldering a mortgage for a house that we can't live in. If I'm not doing my job, I get indicted. Aren't city officials supposed to be protecting us from this unnecessary radiation? I recommend a moratorium on all wireless installations, including the Link 5G towers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for this oversight hearing. My name is LaShawn Ellis, and I was born and raised in New York, and have lived in Crown Heights for almost 30 years. I'm here representing a low to moderate income community of color. I'm a member of the Movement Protect the People, Flower Lovers Against Corruption, and the Sullivan Ludlam Stoddard Neighborhood Association. I live in Community Board 9, where I witnessed the installation of a Link 5G tower this past August, sans any notification from the Community Board 9, and I regularly attend these meetings. After a lot of community collaboration, a lot of FOIL requests, and unprecedented amount of pushback from CB9, with the help of Teresa Westerdahl and Wired Broadband, we were able to get the community board to pass a resolution demanding a moratorium on the Link 5G tower construction and activation until procedures and protocols are followed and important questions are adequately and truthfully answered. I've done some outreach in the community, and there is resounding concern being expressed about these towers. Young and old are worried about the health risks and do not think the health risks are a fair trade-off for 5G. And we know that the levels the FCC and FDA deem safe are not so, based on lawsuits and side effects that many people experience and the fluid movement of executives from corporations to the FCC and FDA, and vice versa, is overwhelming. Low to moderate income communities of color are already vulnerable populations with high rates of asthma and health conditions as compared to white upper middle class communities, thus more at a disadvantage health-wise and with additional health risks associated with 5G. On top of health risks, many do not appreciate the way these towers affect the visual integrity of residential blocks. These towers do not address the great digital divide. We are not certain of exactly where the gaps are in our community, so how do we know that they are being filled? 5G is said to have difficulty penetrating walls, so a lot of seniors will not benefit due to homebound issues, illness, etc., nor will children doing schoolwork in their homes. Almost done. In addition, the comptroller's report on the existing Link 5G kiosks and lack of services provided by CityBridge, $70 million owed to the Office of Technology, and OTI not ensuring equitable distribution to the city's underserved areas are also some major concerns. I would be remiss as we all reticently trudged through the haze blanketing the city from wildfires in Canada. The fire hazards of these towers, tightly packed with electrical equipment, is high. I implore you to please stop using the digital divide as a reason to pollute the city with these towers when there are plenty of other viable options that can really address this divide. Let's be truly innovative and not cave to the desires of corporate greed. A government of the people, by the people, for the people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for this Oversight Committee meeting. My name is Julie Martin, and I'm a lifelong New Yorker. I live in Greenwich Village, and I'm very grateful to Community Board 2 for doing all their due diligence, and they called for a moratorium. I'd like to use this time to read the letter from a very important organization, Americans for Responsible Technology, from its founder and national director, Doug Wood. He and his wife, Patty's nonprofit, represent more than 150 grassroots organizations across the country using the latest science to support the deployment of safe, economical, and future-proof wire technology. They are focused on a very important subject, our children. He points out that the World Health Organization and the American Academy of Pediatrics have both made clear on repeated occasions, children are not just little adults. Their rapidly developing physiology makes them prime targets for environmental threats that can interfere with normal development and cause lifelong behavioral problems and learning deficits. He explains, our science-based organization first became aware of the potential harm that RF radiation poses for children with the publication of a study performed in 2012 at Yale University, where the offspring of laboratory mice who were exposed to cell phone radiation during pregnancy exhibited odd behavioral patterns that mimic every symptom of ADHD. An examination of the brains of the exposed animals revealed abnormal brain development, while the unexposed control group were completely normal in every way. What parent wants to take the chance that their child will not develop normally because of an unnecessary and involuntary exposure to a cell phone tower? Are we adults so desperate to be able to connect our wireless devices to everything, everywhere, all the time, that we are willing to take chances with our children's health and well-being? Last week, our organization filed a formal citizens petition with the FDA accusing the agency of violating its own law, a law which requires the FDA to take every possible step to minimize the public's exposure to RF radiation. Because the FDA has failed to obey the law, you have never been warned that RF radiation can be harmful. You have never been told that the potential harm from cell towers should be balanced with the needs of the community. No one needs a cell tower in front of or even near a school. One day soon, the FDA will probably tell you that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Arnold Gore from Brooklyn, where I have lived for 8 years in Community Board 8, having previously resided in Washington Heights for 30 years. I'm a senior citizen who was on the Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board. I would like to read part of the testimony of Dr. Kent Chamberlain, PhD, former chair of the University of New Hampshire, Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Engineering. Dr. Chamberlain was a member of the New Hampshire State Commission evaluating the health and environmental effects of evolving wireless and 5G technology. Quote, "My purpose is to alert you to the dangers of siting a cell tower near to where people, particularly young people, live, work, or recreate. Scientists, physicians, environmental and public health physicians, epidemiologists, pediatricians, along with engineers such as myself, have been calling for state and local governments to be proactive in protecting your citizens against radiation exposure. Citizens in York, Maine have delayed antennas too close to neighborhoods. And in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, the Board of Health issued a cease and desist order against Verizon construction of a cell tower. I'm calling for a 1,640-foot setback for all new cell towers, end quotations. Woodstock, New York has enacted a model zoning siting law, and we would be wise to adopt something to our own needs. Thank you. I would like to also note that OTI and City Bridge kept on referring to the FCC's standards of protection. Those standards were established in 1996, and the courts asked them to revise those standards. They still haven't done it.
Thank you so much to all the panelists. Thank you for sticking around. Get home safely.
Thank you, everyone. And our final panel will be Nicholas Curto, Donna Rommel, Courtney Millard, Robin Wombold, Jane Rossman, and Paul Rivera.
No, I've got like however many you need. Go for it. Okay, whatever. However it goes. I actually need something bigger. I got some more.
I'll bring, I didn't bring one up. I can bring one up.
That's all right. Just doing this right now.
Need to read.
You might begin.
Who does it?
Honorable City Councilors, my name is Courtney Gilardi. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. I'm an early childhood educator, and while I live outside the city, I have families with young children I work with in New York City who are concerned about the wireless radiation that their children are exposed to. They do not want these towers or kiosks outside their homes. I am speaking on their behalf, as well as someone in a cluster of 17 in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, who has personally been injured by a cell tower installation in my neighborhood, operating within the FCC limits. My children and I have a diagnosis of injury due to non-ionizing radiation and suffer a condition known as electromagnetic sensitivity due to this non-consensual exposure. Our pediatrician brought this to our attention, the American Academy of Pediatrics position statement on limiting exposure to wireless base stations. The addition of these towers and kiosks will only add to the levels of pulsed modulated microwave radiation in direct opposition to what doctors, scientists, pediatricians, subject matter experts, and environmental policymakers are advising. New York City leaders should be focusing on health, safety, and accessibility for all their residents. We are not anti-technology. We love and depend on it, but we also now, since we have been injured by it, use it safer. and everyone deserves to have access to safe technology. A radiating tower or kiosk outside a home can make it inaccessible, as you have heard in other testimonies. The tower in my neighborhood made my home inaccessible, and we were forced to move. Not everyone has that choice. The FCC is not a health or safety agency. They have no studies of the cumulative biomedical effects of the exposure due to a 5G kiosk or tower on every block as they wish to put them. We all agree that there are needs to have robust outreach and engagement to all community boards, and this includes robust discussion on the danger of this wireless installation poses to them. How can people speak out on something hazardous that is promoted as within compliance and portrayed as harmless? How can residents even learn about RF hazards when not a single tower or kiosk here in New York City is labeled as radiating? There is absolutely no informed consent. The New York City Council has no idea of how many people are sick or injured from these wireless installations. They don't know how many people have headaches, nausea, dizziness, insomnia, or palpitations. How can you when no one measures or mitigates? One more sentence. There is a cost to this connectivity. At the cost of the health of your constituents, it is not free. And with thousands of peer-reviewed studies showing harm, not one showing safety, and condescending comparisons about the RF of a banana or a marble slab, and that of pulsed modulated microwave radiation on every block, there is certainly no trust either. Thank you for your important attention to this matter.
Thank you.
Hello, okay. My name is Jane Rossman, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Garment District Alliance. The Garment District Alliance applauds the city's effort to assure Wi-Fi connectivity for all neighborhoods in the city, particularly those that have a dearth of access. With 7 years of experience with the Link system, we also appreciate the council holding this hearing to review the positive and negative impacts of the program. We believe it is important not only to look ahead at the next generation of the system, but to remedy the unintended consequences of the initial rollout. Although the links have benefits, the Garment District is an exception. Sidewalk space in the district is extremely limited, and the pedestrian volume is unusually high, resulting from the proximity to Times Square, Herald Square, the Empire State Building, Penn Station, Port Authority, the 42nd Street subway nexus, over 125,000 office workers, and 54 hotels with 3 million visitors a year. The sidewalks and pedestrian corridors are also compromised by food carts, legal and illegal vendors, newsstands, muni meters, bus shelters, signage, fire hydrants, mailboxes, outdoor dining, bollards, planters, and much more. Our public spaces are awkwardly congested, and the addition of Links totems, while conferring one public benefit, also compromises public safety. The Garment District is faced with an astonishing redundancy of totems, which leads us to question the sincerity of the stated objectives of the program and the implementation plan. We understand that the Links are a franchise agreement with CityBridge, and that for the program to be profitable for both CityBridge and the city, advertising must be sold to underwrite the costs of the program. Advertising value in Manhattan's central business district is greater than in most other neighborhoods. However, placing totems according to value rather than need has resulted in an excessive number of links in the Garment District. If a totem's range is 500 feet, we have redundancy throughout our area, which also has many establishments offering free Wi-Fi. There's no improved public benefit, only additional profit for CityBridge at the expense of pedestrian safety and mobility. As such, the Alliance requests that the Council mandate that OTI eliminate redundancy in any future agreements. Further, the Garment District suffers from the outsized presence of homeless, drug addicts, mentally ill, and other socially challenged individuals living on our streets. These individuals tend to cluster around specific links and monopolize them, streaming all day long in intimidating groups or passed out with the belongings around the totem. The Alliance has for years implored OTI to eliminate specific problematic links which markedly compromise public safety in our neighborhood. Despite these efforts, presenting photographic evidence and testimony from district stakeholders about the negative consequences on their employees and businesses, OTI steadfastly refuses. The Alliance urges the Council to require that in cases where a community demonstrates that a link has become a detriment, not an asset to a neighborhood, then the safety concerns of the community take precedence. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Donna Romo Janelle, and I just wanted to mention that I'm a therapist, and I deal with people who have electromagnetic sensitivity, and if you saw the suffering that I see, it would just make you cry. The tinnitus and the lack of the pain they're in constantly. One lives in the bathroom, pretty much, and that's it. Or she goes to bed at night in the car that's down in the garage. So I just wanted to add on to this Article 117, Section 19 of the New York State Constitution's Bill of Rights. It states, each person shall have a right to clean air and water and to a healthful environment. This is not healthful. And now I would like to also bring up addressing the New York reaching the 0 point project as far as electricity. Here we go. Wireless devices, antenna networks, and data centers are consuming an ever-increasing portion of the global energy supply that comes from pre-inventing wires. Then we have an older one that states, the digital transition as it is currently implemented participates to global warming more than it helps preventing it. And that's from the SHIFT Project Report of the Environmental Impact of Information and Communication Technologies 2019. Something that is older states, our energy calculations show that by 2015, wireless cloud will consume up to 43 terawatt hours compared to only 9.2 terawatt hours in 2012. An increase of 460%. Did you get that one? 460%? This is an increase in carbon footprint, which is what we're all about, carbon footprint, from 6 megatons of CO2 in 2012 to up to 30 megatons of CO2 in 2015, the equivalent of adding 4.9 million cars to the roads. And aren't we trying to get the cars off the roads here? But look at what we're getting with the 5G. Up to 90% of this consumption is attributable to wireless access network technologies. Data centers account for only 9%. Wireless access networks are clearly the biggest and most inefficient consumer of energy in the cloud information. Solution? A national wireline system can guarantee a superior foundation of internet access for everyone. Unequal connectivity speed, safety, privacy, security, energy efficiency, and long-term sustainability. And that's from your fiber, cable, copper, which Verizon never finished installing the fiber optics of which we paid for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm reading this letter on behalf of Margaret Loeb, who's the Vice President of the Board of Directors at 1088, thank you, Park Avenue, another Carnegie Hill neighbor. I'm writing to add my voice to the chorus opposing the proposed 5G towers in Carnegie Hill, and I ask that all of our elected officials, local, state, and federal, work vigorously to stop this program immediately. The 5G proposal is a cynical plan purporting to expand digital access to underserved, less affluent communities, while instead largely passing them by to concentrate proposed towers in affluent neighborhoods. The intention is clear: not to support diversity, not to support equity, and not to bridge a digital divide, but instead to garner huge future revenue streams for carriers, pole providers, and the city by delivering what advertisers value most, upscale demographics. In addition, this ill-conceived plan would damage the Carnegie Hill Historic District, which is listed on the National Register of Historic Places and is one of the most important historic neighborhoods in the United States. Compromising the historic integrity of this neighborhood would be an incalculable loss to our community and to the many tourists who visit our neighborhood and its iconic cultural institutions, including the Metropolitan Museum, the Guggenheim, the Cooper Hewitt, the Newey Gallery, and others. We have learned that only New York City proposes using huge towers to expand 5G services. Every other city in the country has devised a more sensible plan using newer technology. Let us learn from this experience. It is time to jettison this plan right now, today. Thank you, Margaret Loeb.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Raul Rivera. I'm a New York native. I'm a TLC driver and a TLC driver advocate. We don't have anything written down, but we want to talk about legacy. The legacy of this committee, the legacy of all of the committees and the council members, the legacy of Eric Adams, the mayor. There's a mineral called cobalt. That mineral is needed to make batteries for electric vehicles, computers, and such. 75% of the cobalt is harvested in the Congo in Africa, 75%. And we always talk about equity and color and white supremacy and all these other things. 75% of the cobalt is being mined by people of color, young women with babies strapped to their backs, boys and girls. That's going to be the legacy of the city council and the mayor and anyone that's pushing electric vehicles down our throats. According to the mayor and Uber, drivers need to have electric vehicles in about 10 years, since 2030. That's the legacy of this city. You can't cherry pick on what you're going to advocate for. You have to remember the children of the Congo and cobalt. And there is no such thing as clean cobalt. That cobalt passes through the hands of children. And you have to remember that. And we're going to keep bringing that up here and throughout the city. We're even making a documentary, and we're recording this so everybody's going to know. We're going to date it, and you can't say we didn't tell you so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions? Sorry,
Yes.
my microphone was off. I want to thank everyone for excellent testimonies, and this was our last in-person panel. Please, thank you again, get home safe. And now we're going to move to witnesses who are here with us via Zoom. And for everyone who have requested to testify virtually and requested to be a link to be resent, I just want to affirm that link was resent, and want to remind everyone to accommodate everyone today who wish to testify. We kindly ask to limit your testimony to 2 minutes. And now I'm going to call our first virtual panel. And our first panel will be Catherine Diaz, Will Benesh, Ronnie Wolf, Lucille Levine, and Chelsea Formica.
You may begin.
All right. Folks can hear me okay, I'm guessing?
Yes, we can hear you okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. My name is Catherine Diaz, and I am the chair for Manhattan Community Board 12, representing Washington Heights and Inwood. We've experienced in the last several months many inquiries and comments, both from interest groups and residents related to the towers. The process in this rollout has been incredibly confusing and inconsistent, including some of the information shared here today. We're a designated equity district, and we've had some insight, but it's really insufficient to meaningfully provide input as a board and as a district. And as a board, we have yet to have a formal position on the matter. Structures in our district do not exist in a vacuum, and understanding where they're going to be installed, why, and how our streets are going to look like is really key in building public trust and being able to participate meaningfully. If there are going to be 75 installed in our district, it's really critical for us to know upfront and to have a map of all of them. as the decisions and the input that we make on 4 or 5 affect the rest, right, or vice versa. Secondly, open data is not an accessible platform, particularly for neighborhoods like ours that already has limited access and digital literacy and digital literacy, excuse me. So I was happy to hear today that there would be a dedicated site available, and I do hope that there will be a map available of all projected 75 towers to be installed, what those timelines are, and more expanded or robust FAQs that can address the many questions that the public has that we've heard here today, and that quite frankly that the committee has also raised, that have yet to be clarified. We also really do ask of OTI and City Bridge specifically what their plans are for engagement when alternative locations are proposed, and if they will agree to them or find others. How often do they plan to return to our communities with redesigns? With
Your time has
additional
expired.
locations?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Yes. Thank you, Ms. Diaz. Thanks for sticking around. Earlier in the hearing, Councilmember De La Rosa had sent some questions for me to ask of City Bridge. Can you confirm if the 70 or so designations that I was referring to your knowledge, are those proposed towers or a combination of 5G towers and kiosks?
No, 75 towers.
75 of the 5G towers. And your community board is Washington Heights and Inwood?
Yes.
Okay. And right now, do you have a sense of how many kiosks, would you say that the kiosks are distributed in your community board?
The kiosks, yes, we have had, even in the past, before it was OTI and Do It, they did come to our community board, presented them, explained those really well. So we do have a good number of kiosks. I don't know the number off the top of my head. I believe we have 1 tower.
No, and that's only because the City Bridge is defining some of these districts that where they're looking at citing as equity districts. So I was just curious if in your opinion, you felt like there was a decent amount of connectivity and access. I also know that your district has a significant amount of multi-dwelling buildings. You have the highest rate of rent stabilized units, and what we've been hearing is like, just because you are next to a tower or kiosk doesn't mean that you can access this in your home. What do you think the impact, is there a benefit to these 75 towers, particularly in your community board that has so much density, whether or not they'd even be able to access this from inside their homes?
Right. I mean, and I think that was the big question in hearing today's hearing, but also part of the inconsistency, right, is that we're being told that this was specifically for equity expansion, for digital access for folks who from their apartment. And people already do use, for example, the kiosks, right? So what is that data? How many people are using if there's even a way to track that, folks who are consistently using the kiosk from their apartments. We know that's not a replacement, obviously, for improved access to internet, and should not be the sole way. But part of our question, right, is again, what is the purpose? What is the goal of these? And part of what we did hear from the one presentation that they did make is that it was actually, again, similar to that like hotspot idea, that it's for people who are on the street.
Right.
So it's difficult to reconcile. Is this really meant to expand for folks who live here? Or is this for a carrier network? Is this for on the street access? And so it's difficult for us to reconcile of that with many different narratives.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Diaz. And I know that you mentioned that in your testimony, that you would like to re-engage with them on their designation process. So we'll make sure to make that connection if they haven't, if that hasn't happened yet. Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Our next panelist is Will Dinesh. I'm sorry, Will Dinesh. I apologize for mispronouncing the name.
No problem at all. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Great. Yes, my name is Will Benish. I'm the committee chair for Manhattan Community Board 2's Quality of Life Committee. I'm speaking to give testimony on behalf of Manhattan CB2, which passed a resolution on this topic at our January 19th meeting. Our resolution highlighted the significant and far-reaching concerns that the board heard from community members regarding the proposed installation of the Link 5G towers. These concerns are not in fact limited to any single category, but stretch across a wide range of areas, including design and aesthetics, safety, privacy, maintenance, equity, and economics. While I don't have time today to go into detail about all these concerns, one area I wanted to highlight is the potential impact of the installation of these towers within or adjacent to landmarked historic districts and or individual landmarked buildings. Several of the proposed siting locations for Link 5G towers within Community District 2 fall within or adjacent to landmarked historic districts, including Greenwich Village Historic District, Soho Cast Iron Historic District, and the Gansevoort Market Historic District. The proposed design for these towers is completely out of scale with the iconic streetscapes and architecture within these districts. Additionally, the board feels that there remains significant uncertainty as to what the actual LPC approval process would be for the proposed siting of these towers within these districts, and believe that there has not been enough consideration of alternative infrastructure, which would be less obtrusive. Finally, many variable subsurface conditions exist throughout these older districts, including extensive vault systems underneath many of CD2's sidewalks. The board believes OTI has not fully considered or appreciated the fact that this may present an engineering difficulty, hampering the ability to construct the towers in these areas. Outside of these concerns, there are many other broad concerns shared across many other areas which may not be unique to CD2, but are real and should not be minimized. Finally, there seems to be simply no need for these towers in many of the areas that are being proposed. Within CD2, there is ample sufficient cell phone service and broadband access. We understand there's other separate programs installing 5G technology.
Time expired.
Thank you. Just to conclude, we've called for a moratorium on the installation of these towers within all residential and mixed-use districts which contain residential zoning and in or in proximity to landmark districts and individual landmarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Our next witness is Ronnie Wolf.
Starting time.
Hello, and thank you for holding this forum. My name is Ronnie Wolf. I'm a resident and commercial property owner on Broadway in Soho. I'm in opposition of the 3-story 5G towers in historic districts, and the project should be paused throughout the city. I wish to speak about one specific situation. Several months ago, City Bridge was granted a permit by DOT to cut 3 large holes into my property's corner sidewalk. I was not notified prior to their action, and although their contract with the city states they are to engage an engineer, they did not. The properties along Broadway and along sidewalks of corner intersections are vaulted. Although the Department of Building has a map noting where the vaults are located in Soho, DOT, City Bridge, and Triumph, the contractor they hired to cut the 3 large holes into the sidewalks, neglected to do their due diligence to look to see if there was a vault. And even after cutting the first hole, they could see they cut into the building's vault. They proceeded to cut 2 more holes because, as the higher hand shouted at me, they have the permit to do so. Their actions have not been rectified. The sidewalk's waterproof membrane has been cut, and their actions have left the basement vulnerable to the elements. City Bridge has already shown that they have no respect for other people's property, nor the health of residents in residential buildings next to where they plan to erect their towers. They stated their mission is all about serving the underserved. As I would say it's all about money and collecting personal data. Soho is a mixed-use neighborhood with mostly residential units above the ground floor. The poles would be located directly outside 2nd and through 4th floor residential windows. Their presence is a health concern for all of us, and I hope
Time expired.
that we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next witness is Ms. Levine.
Starting time.
Hi, Chair Gutierrez. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. The Historic Districts Council is the citywide advocate for New York's architectural, historical, and cultural neighborhoods. We work with over 500 neighborhood organizations in all 5 boroughs. We are concerned about New York City's installation and review process surrounding its Link 5G tower infrastructure. We are troubled by the tower's massive 32-foot height, utterly imposing scale, and complete lack of design, which seems to have no regard for New York's historic resources, the city's residential scale, or the urban experience. For an administration that has appointed the city's first public realm officer, this program seems utterly discordant with that realm. Speaking of serving the public, we are also chagrined that the first phase of the tower program, which the city claims will help bridge the digital divide, did not cite towers in equity districts beyond Manhattan's core and in the outer boroughs. Instead, the first towers appeared in areas like the Upper East Side and Soho, neighborhoods seemingly chosen to benefit City Bridge, a private carrier, and not New Yorkers most in need of digital access. We wonder why the first phase of towers has already been installed, given that the program will have to go through the federal Section 106 historic review process as confirmed by the Federal Communications Commission. We believe it would have been more financially and environmentally appropriate for the city to have waited for that review process to take place rather than installing structures it may have to take down over the course of the review. HDC is a consultant in the federal Section 106 process, and thus far the materials and communications we have received have been incomplete and disorganized. On the municipal level, HDC wonders how and when these towers will come before the Landmarks Preservation Commission. According to the city's presentations to the PDC, 5G link installations in historic areas require review and approval from the LPC, and installations adjacent to public parks require review and approval of the Department of Parks and Recreation. As of yet, there have been no such review of the 5G towers from either of these agencies. We urge the City Council to halt any further rollout
Time
of this
expired.
program until at least 3 2, there are clear dates and guidelines for public hearing by the LPC, and 3, there's a clear equity map showing where and why 5G kiosks are installed in specific locations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony. Our final panelist in this panel is Chelsea Formica.
Starting time.
My name is Chelsea Formica. I live at 520 East 90th Street, where a 5G wireless facility was placed atop a city-owned light pole by XNet less than 10 feet from my infant son's bedroom. This pole is different from the Link NYC poles, but the issue with OTI's lack of communication remains the same and should serve as a tale of caution for all constituents today as to what will happen when the pole is erected and the lack of communication that will happen thereafter. Our community board was not given the contractual 15-day notice to discuss or refute this pole's erection that is less than 10 feet from my infant son's bedroom and people's living spaces. Since then, Community Board 8 has called for a moratorium on all 5G pole installation in our district. In addition, this pole blocks our view of a nationally registered historic site, the municipal asphalt plant. We are currently looking into whether or not a Section 106 was completed. We had Councilmember Menon, Borough President Mark Levine, Senator Liz Krueger, and Assemblymember Rebecca Seawright all co-sign a letter to XNet and OTI asking if the pole be removed because of a failure to notify constituents and because of the proximity to our building. OTI refused to relocate a single pole. XNet and OTI responded to this letter stating that when the site is operational, XNet would offer to conduct a field RF emissions test that they believe would affirmatively demonstrate that the site meets all federal RF emission safety standards. Since both OTI and XNet have not followed through with any transparent, promised, and/or required communication either before or after this pole was installed, I am here today pleading for information from OTI on when the pole will be turned on, when these tests will be completed, when and how we will be able to see the test results, and if there is any way that we can move this single pole. This is a safety issue for my baby and my family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chelsea, thank you so much for your testimony. Lucy, I have a question on your expertise on the Historic District Council. In your opinion, what is a manageable way to install a tower, if that's what we need for more connectivity in a Historic District Council? What does it need to look like? What are the guidelines, if they exist, that are out there in this instance?
Sure, thank you for asking. I am not able to tell you what the guidelines for design are. What we're asking for at the Historic Districts Council is for the towers to go through that design review process, first through the Section 106 federal review, which the FCC has already confirmed the towers will need to do. And then also to come under the review of the Landmarks Preservation Commission. And so we're not here to say what the design should be. We're saying they need to come under a design review process, which they have not done yet. So we're confused as to why, with the knowledge that they have to come under that process federally under Section 106 and then municipally from the Landmarks Commission, why they would have been installed like prior to that review process when that has to take place anyway. We also believe that everyone in New York is entitled to good design and useful structures, right? So the idea that there should be good design in historic districts, well, there should also be good design outside of historic districts. That somebody who lives on the Upper East Side deserves a beautifully designed piece of the city, as does somebody who lives in Brownsville, right? That we all, in terms of equity of design and equity of use, we all deserve that in New York City. And the only way to get that is to allow for these structures to come under design review before they're installed. Thanks.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you. And our next panelists are Daniel Schwartz, followed by Shruti Sriram, followed by Clayton Banks. Daniel Schwartz.
You may begin.
My name is Daniel Schwartz, and I'm testifying on behalf of the New York Civil Liberties Union. We thank the committee and council members for holding this hearing and for the opportunity to provide testimony today. Link NYC has, after 9 years of operation, still not disclosed a comprehensive list of the 30 sensors included in the kiosks, nor how Link NYC collects, combines, and utilizes people's information in its ad-driven business model. Each kiosk is equipped with multiple technologies that can facilitate the tracking of people and other data. Taken together at scale at the city level, they allow for vast surveillance powers. It is important to note that the remote technologies allow for the possibility to track devices, whether they affirmatively connect to the network or not. Such unwitting data leakage and collection can occur through wireless technologies, which emit unique device identifiers when looking for and pinging nearby connections and devices. And let's be clear, these surveillance powers are not by accident, but are core features of the business model, which, according to Intersection, promises advertisers highly detailed audience insights, real-time geospatial audience segmentation, and allows for hyper-targeting in the physical world. All these quotes stem from official Intersection advertising materials. Intersection describes further, ads on Link NYC will respond to the audience nearby, much like ads online, showing the right ad to the right people at the right time, wherever they are. How this is implemented and which third-party data sources are tapped into remains unclear. But these central capabilities make it plainly clear how this ad model is fundamentally different from traditional ad billboards at a phone booth or bus stop. Each of the thousands of kiosks can continuously collect anonymous amounts of data, which can be further analyzed, processed, or combined. Claims of anonymization are worth little without full transparency, providing details on how they're implemented and how data are leveraged for targeted ads. Given the myriad ways of correlating their data with other data sets, re-identification
Time expired.
Thank you. We provided written testimony outlining more of our concerns, including the lack of bridging the digital divide. And we thank the council, and we want to note that the council has a crucial role to play in overseeing large-scale tech deployments like Link NYC, setting much-needed guardrails, safeguarding New Yorkers' privacy interests and rights, and providing broadband access to all New Yorkers.
Thank you so much, Mr. Schwartz. Our next panelist is Shruti Sriram.
Starting time.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shruti, and I'm here today representing the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project, which is a New York-based civil rights and anti-surveillance group. I'm testifying today on our concerns about Link NYC's impact on New Yorkers' privacy. One of our most immediate concerns is Link NYC's privacy track record. Findings from a 2022 privacy and transparency audit revealed that City Bridge unlawfully continues to collect MAC addresses, IP data, subscriber data, and other identifying information from users of Link NYC kiosks. Such practices are not only a security and privacy risk to New Yorkers, but in direct violation of Link NYC's amended privacy policy and franchise agreements. Additionally, auditors found that City Bridge gave incomplete terms of use and incorrect privacy policies to Link NYC users. The consequences of these and the privacy infringements that they pose to New York residents are exceptionally high. Since the 2022 audit, City Bridge issued a remediation report in which they stated that they deployed MAC address anonymization and now ensure that users are provided with accurate terms of use and privacy information. While we believe these are important steps forward, far more is needed to protect New Yorkers' data. We commend the committee for holding this hearing and urge it to maintain its aggressiveness in its oversight of Link NYC and City Bridge. This company has repeatedly failed to meet its commitments to the city and people of New York, both failing it with its economic returns that the people of New York were promised, but have also breached users' privacy rights. City Bridge has been given millions of dollars in kind support from our city, but such a troubled history of privacy protection necessitates unflinching scrutiny of every aspect of the firm's business practices. Our challenge for company leaders is this: for every reassurance they've provided today of privacy and security maintenance, for every promise they've made for the future, are these binding obligations or simply empty words? As long as these commitments clash with the company, we have no choice but to assume these promises are more about PR than privacy. Thank you for your time, and thank you for letting me testify on behalf of.
Thank you very much. And our next panelist is Clayton Banks.
Starting time.
Well, thank you very much. And I definitely want to say thank you to the committee in and of itself and Gutierrez. I have 100 things to talk about, but I'm only going to do 99. No, I'm kidding, actually. It's going to be very quick. So one is I think the council should think of 3 really key things. I hope Gutierrez is able to write this down. Number 1, the next digital divide, if you will, in New York City and across this country is 5G. Nobody talked about that today. 5G actually creates another divide, right? You have to have a 5G device to use 5G. And that is expensive right now. It's a lot of money to get a 5G phone or a 5G anything. So I just want to make that as a thing, right? So you should be talking about that. What is 5G? I've been doing research on 5G for many, many years, way before anybody was thinking about it. Number 2, I think you ought to think about making sure to separate 5G from tower, right? So we tend to put them together. But the tower is one thing, 5G is another. So we'll talk more about that. Third, at the end of the day, this is all about broadband for me. I think we have moved all of our civics to online. So when there's people in East Harlem or other parts of Harlem or any place around our city that doesn't have the internet, is basically no longer a citizen. That's a problem. So we can't wait. We can't wait on towers and 5Gs and big apples and all this other stuff. We need to get together with the city council and say, guess what? If everyone has to have the internet, it becomes private and public. I'm your man to help you with this. So I just want to make that clear. Everybody understand. 5G is the next digital divide. It really is. So, and then the towers themselves.
Time
all
expired.
The infrastructure that New York City has, we got to be careful. Thank you very much. I'm your man.
Clayton, thank you so much. You have livened this panel up. Thank you so much to all of our panelists.
And I want to thank everyone one more time. And now we're going to take a 2-minute break, and we will continue with our next panel. And I would like to announce our next panelist. Our next panelists are Frank Taylor, followed by John Kochari, followed by Lauren Bond, and Reverend Thorbs. Thank you. We're taking a 2-minute break, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes. Thank you. Okay, we're starting with our next panel, and we're starting with Frank Taylor.
Okay, hello? I don't know if I can be heard yet.
Yes, you can. You can start now.
All right, great. Thank you very much. My name is Frank Taylor. I am a retired law enforcement. I live in East Elmhurst. I am the current Community Board 3 chair of Community Board 3 in Queens. I represent East Elmhurst, Jackson Heights, and North Corona. We've had committee meetings on this with both these committees, both these guys, City and Link. They have proven themselves to be false, actually. When you go back and check what they've actually said and what they've actually given us, it's been false. They've shown themselves to be bad actors in the community boards. Also, being the chair of a community board, not everyone has scientists or environmental lawyers to decipher some of this information. But most of us don't need someone to tell us that radiation is bad. Radiation does not go well with a human being. And what we're talking about here is not simply headaches. We're talking about cancers. We're talking about immune diseases. We're talking about stopping people from being able to learn. Yes, this is a program that needs to be done as far as getting everyone broadband. Yeah, and I love Clayton earlier when she said no one was talking about 5G. You know, everyone's talking about everything else, but what happened to 5G? But these people are not the people to do it. They've said to you guys, honestly, this is not for us. This is not for the people who live here. This is for the cars. This is for people on the street. Well, again, I get with third world countries. We always get the word third world countries. I live next to LaGuardia Airport.
Time expired.
My big thing, if I could just say this, we have to take care of people, not companies. And this is obviously a company that's a show. So please, I want to get back to normal. Like the president said, COVID's over. Let's act like COVID's over. And I appreciate the chairperson who did this meeting. This was very well done. A lot of questions were asked that weren't answered in other circles. So I thank you again from Community Board 3 in Queens. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Taylor. Our next panelist is John Kochari.
Starting time.
Hi, I'm John Cochran, very pleased to testify on behalf of the Center for Hearing and Communication, also known as CHC, about our experience with the Link NYC program. CHC, just as background, we're a private nonprofit rehabilitation center for people of all ages with hearing loss. We were established in 1910 and provide services including hearing testing, hearing aid dispensing, speech and language therapy, educational support, and mental health counseling. We also provide a great deal of public education, much of it focused on the impact of noise on hearing and quality of life, the significant negative impact of untreated hearing loss in older adults, and accessible communication for people with hearing loss. We're licensed in New York State as an Article 28 diagnostic and treatment center and outpatient mental health clinic, and we provide services to all regardless of a person's ability to pay. People generally know that Link NYC benefits New York City residents and visitors and businesses, but I don't think it's as widely known that Link NYC also benefits nonprofits like CHC. CHC had the opportunity to advertise on Link NYC kiosks at no cost as part of the Link Local program. We can't even begin to put a dollar value on this pro bono advertising. The CHC budget doesn't include funding for advertising. We know there are many individuals in New York who could benefit from our services, but they just don't know that we exist. We're often told by clients who do find us that we are the best kept secret in New York. So being able to have our message seen by millions of New Yorkers who pass by the screens is exposure we never could have had without the Link Local program. So we're very grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for your testimony.